Hi everyone, how are you? We're excited to have you on board for this project. Masa B'Chativa is a series of 5 lessons which you, our Gap Year Fellows, will communicate to small groups of 3 to 5 junior high students. The lessons are divided into 5 topics and fully structured to help make your interaction with Israeli students as smooth as possible. Each lesson plan has a structure, an opening, a lead-in, a presentation, a practice, and a closing. From our special Masa B'Chativa Padlet, you can have easy access to all of the relevant lessons and activities that you will need to make your communication with Israeli students successful. Each lesson is divided by a theme. We have About Me, Hopes and Dreams, Healthy Living, Social Media, and Jewish Life Abroad. What better way to get them ready than to ask you guys a few questions because you're the experts in the field. And the question is, how do I communicate to students who don't know English and I don't know Hebrew?
So, little background, I know like almost no Hebrew. The kids are so happy to just be able to speak like to you, like you're a foreigner, especially if you're American or Canadian. They're like, oh my gosh, you speak English. They're gonna try. Like they might stand in front of you for 5 minutes just trying to think of a few words. But a lot of like, for me, communicating with them is pointing and repetition. And like today, I taught a class by myself, and the teacher that was translating me spoke almost zero English, so not helpful. So I was standing in front of class and I was like, okay, you're gonna circle. And I had my marker for the board and I was like, circle. And like you catch kids who catch on really fast and they say the Hebrew word and it's like a connect the dots for all the kids. Once you get one vocal kid, the other kids kind of follow along and they're like, okay, we're gonna circle. A lot of body movements is like what I do. And just like I've picked up on Hebrew, these kids are smart. They're teaching me things. You know, I'm learning how to say no, here, like all the basic words. I'm kind of getting down because of them.
Thank you.
That's my answer.
Good answer. Okay, the next question is for Ethan. What do I do if students don't turn on their camera?
So I would say the first thing is don't worry. For all you know, it could be a technical issue, or they don't know how to do it, or sometimes adolescents at that age can be shy. So don't sweat it, and give positive, encouraging, welcoming language. It would be great to see you, or feel free to join when you're ready, because then it gives that student that you're interacting with ownership and autonomy, and that they want to feel comfortable, because obviously in this class that we're with them, it's obviously sort of a safe, comfortable space, and we want them to feel that, and we want them to have that feeling. And also, if it's a few minutes and they haven't turned on their camera, you can always write them a quick message in the chat being like, hey, how you doing? Is everything okay? Keep it simple in case their English is not all that high. And I know, like, I bought a ton of fun masks. Like, I've got one with minions on them. I've got one with like little squirrels, like something. If you have that, throw it on, sort of breaks the ice and makes it a bit happier. And then, yeah, that's all I got.
Great. Thanks so much. Okay, the next question is for Zach from Bina, Zach Fish. What are some cultural differences you've noticed with working with Israeli students?
So a couple key examples that I've noticed while teaching. The biggest difference are like the teachers are called by, or the students call the teachers by their first names. The leniency is there's much more leniency when it comes to like the class starting right on time. And the rules that are really set are not exactly followed like with the really, really tight graphs, at least that I was personally used to. It's more of like a situational understanding, especially while teaching over Zoom. These examples are really common in the Israeli classroom overall. And I just personally found that to be very opposite of what I was used to. However, it's very, very important that you realize that that's not a big like respect difference. The most apparent differences I've noticed come from the priority of progression for the individual students rather than being focused entirely on meeting like the curriculum and being in like a perfect classroom setting. The classroom is a more flexible learning environment that prioritizes the student growing individually rather than grading and comparing one another constantly. Like we said earlier, it's like when one student gets it, they kind of pinball off of one another and get to learn a whole lot more. And so I find it really important to have like an emphasis on small victories in the classroom. And it goes a whole lot like farther for the pupils overall, especially in this unprecedented time, like with coronavirus affecting the overall education system. This requires like more attention to relaying like knowledge from the teacher to the student, but not so much on creating the ideal environment to do so in. What I find the most important to handling these differences is actually the strongest similarity that I've found while teaching Israeli students, and that's that they're still kids. They still have a desire to learn. The students feed off of the energy that is provided around them. And if there's a genuine desire around teaching the material or learning more English along the way, then they'll respond with a stronger desire to learn, regardless of the cultural difference or classroom setting.
Thank you so much. Let's go now to Zach from Bat Yam. How do I get students to be engaged?
So one of the most interesting things about teaching here is that the students really are naturally interested in you. You're not from Israel. They have this kind of like amazing view of other countries, and you know, me being from New York, like they love New York City. They really want to know all about it. Is it like how it is in movies? So there is a natural engagement that you don't get the same as in an American school. Really just keeping them interested, asking them questions, checking in on them. If you speak for too long and like continuously and you don't really give them a chance to give their input or participate, they'll start to kind of lose focus. So just continuing to ask them questions, have activities where they're, you know, like these lessons have all built in activities where there's high engagement. So just really making sure that they have an opportunity to voice their own excitement and opinions and contribute.
You guys are just the best. Okay, the next question for Tal. What's most rewarding about communicating with Israeli students?
So for me, there's a few things. First of all, I think it's really rewarding to see how the kids improve. For instance, like I do a reading group with my kids in the afternoon on Zoom with my grade 5s. And there was this one girl who was like really shy to read, and she like doesn't really know too much English. She doesn't even know Hebrew. She's actually a Russian speaker. And like the one day she was like, no, she wants to read. She wants to show me she can read. So she literally started reading, and it was like amazing. It was, you know, like to see how sometimes it's just about making them also feel comfortable and just urging them forward. And it's so rewarding to see results. But I think the other thing for me is I think it's rewarding to also like learn about the Israeli culture through the classroom. I know that sounds weird, but like it's a beautiful environment to see the culture without it being overwhelming. And I mean, the kids are very assertive, and I don't know, it's very fascinating to watch. Maybe I'm a bit of a psychology nerd, but it's very fascinating to watch. And the third thing for me is also just the relationships with the kids, you know, like it's amazing how it just happens. You don't even really have, I mean, like obviously you should be putting effort into it, but they naturally just want to like be your friend and they want to connect with you. And it's so beautiful to make those connections and like just, you know, put an impact, I mean, make an impact in their lives in some way or another. So yeah, and also they're also making an impact in my life for sure. So it's a two-way street. And I guess you could also say Hebrew's another award, but for me, I more or less speak Hebrew, so I don't really know if that.
Awesome, thank you. And we have Sam, who's also with Ortal now. What is your favorite experience from the Israeli classroom or Zoom classroom?
So my favorite experience from the Israeli classroom happened right before lockdown in one of the 3 days I was actually in a physical school, which was, so I'm back in school now, but before we ended BDUG, we had 3 days of in-person classes and then lockdown and only Zoom classes. During my second or third day of in-person class, I took 2 students to do like a 1-on-2 session where we would work in the workbook and kind of do, you know, I helped them learn. It was twins actually. They were, I think, 3rd or 4th grade. I helped them learn verbs, like we were acting out running and jumping, and like sitting, standing. I was chatting with them in very broken Hebrew about like Mario and SpongeBob and Avengers, because that's how, for 3rd or 4th grade boys, that's what they love. I think you have to get on their level a bit to, find common ground. And eventually they just started shouting, Eza Kef, Eza Kef, Eza Kef. And I was only in the school for 2 days at that point, so I didn't really know what it meant. We went through a whole balagan, a mess of trying to Google translate it, because they kept going like Ech omri eze kef be'ivrit into Google Translate, which just means how do you say eze kef in Hebrew. And so I looked it up, and it means like how fun, how fun, how fun. And that event for me it immediately showed me how much of an impact we can have on these kids, how much they enjoy having us in the classroom. And during Seger lockdown, when we had only Zoom classes, that experience is what kind of kept me motivated and kept me going, because I knew that if that's like a high that I could reach in person, then once Seger is over, I knew I'd be able to reach that again.
Awesome. Thank you. We have from Jerusalem, Ross. If you could give 5 words of advice on successful communication with Israeli students, what would they be?
So it's interesting because there's a lot of barriers right now to communication, with Corona, wearing masks in school, or just teaching over Zoom. So I'd say the first thing is like just smile, be comfortable, be happy, because a smile really just transcends all languages. It disarms people, and the student could be really excited or nervous, and it puts them at ease. The next one I would say is patience. Right? There's just remember that there is a language barrier and also a cultural barrier. So if the student's trying, let them try at first, let them try the word, whatever they're trying to do, and then you can go in and correct them. Letting them do it on their own is a really good feeling. It also helps build good rapport. And then a lot of people have kind of alluded to this before, but just remember and understand that there is a culture difference. So if your student starts yelling or interrupting you in class, it's not against you or disrespectful. It's most of the time they're just really excited to learn. They want to show you that they know the answer. So yeah, just don't take it personally. And this is something I've come to understand is try to understand the background of the people that you're teaching. I work in a lower socioeconomic area, so a lot of my kids come from difficult homes. So that understanding where they're coming from really helps me teach them and understand what's going on, especially in the way they're communicating with me that day. And then also someone mentioned this before, but interest, find out what your students are interested in. For a while it was difficult. My students kept getting bored, and then one of them just mentioned that they really like Kung Fu Panda. So now I teach a lot with Kung Fu Panda, review scenes and have them tell me what's going on in there. And it's made, communicating with them just through the vehicle of learning so much easier. So yeah, hope this helps.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Vanessa from Jerusalem. Why do we invite you to take part in this project?
Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa from Jerusalem, and we really want you to be a part of this project because we want to share this meaningful and fulfilling experience with you. Thousands of Israeli students across the country will be able to take part in this project with you, and in a time of so much uncertainty, we are really proud to be able to be a part of something that's greater to ourselves, that's connecting to other people in the world. And all of this is also strengthening connections with the Israeli youth. And we have the opportunity to enhance their spoken English skills and make an impact on the next generation of Israel and really have that hands-on experience. And we're ready for you to join our project.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll start with our first lesson, which is about me. Ethan, would you like to explain?
So about me, it's pretty straightforward. It's about them. And I mentioned, and I just realized this now, it almost ties into some of the ideas that I brought up about if a kid doesn't turn on their screen. If you invite them to turn on their screen, it gives them ownership and autonomy. This is about them taking ownership and displaying who they are as a person and show their interests and who they are as a person to the best of their abilities, obviously by Zoom. And we've broken it into 5 parts. We've got the opening, which is, and it's pretty standard. How are you? What's your name? Different things like that. Just those sort of basic particulars. The second part is the lead-in. We just have certain vocabulary related to the topic. It can be about stories, like the idea of a story, the idea of a background, history, different things like that. And then we've got the lead-in activity. And then we discovered that there's a spinning wheel activity question, and it's literally like Wheel of Fortune. Spin the wheel, whatever it lands on, that's what you talk about and you answer. And then we came up with some basic questions of that they can answer about themselves. And these are just guiding questions. You don't have to stick to them. They're just to help sort of get the creative juices flowing in your mind and in their minds of what they want to answer and what they feel comfortable answering, obviously. And then now it really gets into the next part of the presentation or the lesson is presenting. And this is really where the ownership comes in. And they'll work on this individual worksheet, but then when they present it, they really get to quote unquote brag about themselves, but not in that way, but they really get to take pride in their work and share things their peers might not know about them, or things that are just really cool and unique about them. And it gives them the spotlight and time to shine. And then, as always with teaching lessons, there's always the closing or an exit ticket. And it's always nice to ask reflective questions, such as, again, as stated, what new thing or word did you learn, or idea did you learn in this lesson? Or what, and not necessarily what could you do differently, but what sort of seeing what other people have done and what you've done, what piques your interest more about expressing yourself or learning about your peers or people you interact with.
Great, thank you so much. Our next lesson is Hopes and Dreams. Jessie.
So we start off and we basically have them doing a hook or like a little bell ringer introduction where they can either talk about it or write it out, whichever they're more comfortable with, and then discuss as a class. But it's basically saying, by the time I am X amount of years old, for our lesson plan, we put 40 years old, I want to blank. So by the time I'm 40 years old, I want to be a chef, or I want to climb Mount Everest, or I want to graduate college. It could be anything that the kid wants it to be. It could be as small as I want to learn a new language to I want to travel the world or move to a different country. And basically they're going to have like a small set amount of time where they think about their answer. They can write it down if they're kind of scared to just think of it on the spot. And then in their small group, they'll discuss what their answers are. And then you, as the gap year, what you'll do is you'll kind of facilitate this, and then you'll share your own views, your own answers. By the time I'm 40 years old, I want to blah, like from your point of view. And then you'll move on to the main activity after everyone shared their answers and explain what you want this main activity to be, which is what me and Ethan thought is a dream board. And what a dream board is basically a board that we did on Jamboards, which is an amazing website that's super easy to use. Basically, you're going to put pictures, words, sentences, phrases, things that inspire you to reach for a higher dream, or something that reminds you of your family, your friends. So it's things that make you like basically what fuels your future. So like, for instance, for mine, I put languages because I love languages. I'm living in Israel, learning Hebrew. It's not an easy thing, but I like my dream board has the languages because it's a constant reminder to work hard, to like learn the language, even when it's hard. You know, they don't speak English here. You got to work hard. So it's kind of explaining from your point of view what you think a dream board is, or a dream board is, and then showing your students yours. Me and Ethan made ours, so you can show those as well. And you're going to basically give the students 15 minutes to find pictures, type in words, add images that they think are their hopes, dreams, and aspirations. After those 15 minutes are done, you're going to give about 2 minutes, if it's a group of 5, for each student to present their Jamboard online. So, give them time to explain what each thing means. If they have trouble with it and they can't find the words, ask them questions to facilitate that. Oh, why did you choose this picture? Oh, is this word important to you? Why did you choose this color? Like simple questions can really help them, especially if they're nervous to present. After that, we did switch it up a little. So now that we are the second session, what you're going to do is you're gonna just wind down and kind of talk about what's the importance of knowing your dreams and your aspirations. Like, why is it important that you start it now? And then kind of talk about what you went over throughout the lesson. What were some key points that you noticed that student A did or student B did? Kind of like incorporate those so that the kids can feel like you've heard them and you've seen what they're creating, because making them part of the activity is the biggest, like most important thing. And that's your lesson.
Thank you so much. Our next lesson is healthy living.
Basically, we designed this lesson because it kind of serves two purposes outside of just learning the English and vocabulary associated with healthy living. We can also hopefully teach students a little bit about, physical health and nutrition and mental health and, all of these different things that sometimes are glossed over but are really essential. So with the topic, introducing the idea of the lesson, introduce the purpose also. Students will be really, really excited if they learn like they're going to move a little bit. They're not going to have to sit at their chair the whole time. They're going to be able to get up, maybe do some exercises. The students here really love sports and all different kind of activities like that. So let them know that that's what's coming. So they're excited about the lesson. The objectives here, like I said, are a hybrid between learning about the English, talking about themselves, writing about themselves. There's kind of different activities in there that hit each of those, as well as learning about health. So if we could skip down to the opening. When you open your slideshow and all that, introduce the lesson. Basically, short, brief, don't take a ton of time on this because the students want to get into learning. Introduce yourself as well, so give them a little bit about yourself. Then the lead in, there's a vocabulary video. So it's called 7 Tips for Healthy Living. The tips are listed below, and basically it'll go over some important words for the students to know. Then we'll move on to a presentation and speaking. For speaking, there's a worksheet to look at, a matching activity, and students will be able to talk about different words as they match. You could also discuss healthy and unhealthy lifestyles. Ask students, the following the presentation, is this healthy or unhealthy? Let them contribute as much as possible. And then carry on to closing, where you're reflecting on the lessons. Depending on the student's level, you could ask them to write the answers to these questions to practice writing. If they're not as strong writing, you could just have them verbally go over it and communicate with you these answers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Our next is social media.
For the social media lesson, we really wanted to get the kids, really students involved, of course, and again, to just move them around. It can be hard to be in a lesson over Zoom, so just to get them moving around. So social media is really a universal language. It's something that we use in America and in Israel, so it's something that can be related to both us and the students. So we wanted to start with the lesson with just talking about social media. How do you use it every day? Why do you use it? In what ways? Just to get both of us talking, having a conversation. And then it moves on to a more interactive activity based on the level of students. So beginner levels can do a worksheet and really just elicit conversation with the students. And then we get into more interactive, where the students can talk about themselves in regards to a social media or on a social media platform. So what I mean by that is a certain student will be able to talk about themselves as if they were posting on Instagram, as if they were posting on Twitter or TikTok. These are social media platforms that the students are really familiar with and they really like, and just the word Instagram or TikTok, it gets them awake, it gets them interested. So not only do they like talking about themselves, but they would love to make a makeshift post on a certain website or platform. So that's the goal, is to get them interactive, and then they can present those posts that they make about themselves to the group, and then they can discuss those posts. Yeah, and the closing is just to reflect on their posts, the lessons, and you can talk with the students more about why they did what they did, and so on.
Our lesson is the very last lesson, and it talks about Jewish living in Jewish communities abroad. So being the fact that many of the students don't have experiences or limited exposure to what it looks like to live abroad as a Jew, this lesson is their first, or maybe for some of them, their first exposure to this aspect of Jewish life. So our very first activity is an introductory activity, which gives the kids about 10 minutes approximately to really dive in and take a look at from a perspective of maybe something that they've heard previously, someone might have told them. And they're answering a number of Kahoot questions. So hopefully by now, many of you have experienced Kahoot. It's quite a popular game that can be used on a cell phone. So the questions on there are very simple, and they have pictures to go with the words to help the kids kind of navigate through the questions. The recommendation is to make sure that you're reading them to the kids, because sometimes they may be able to read, but they may be slower at reading and the pace may not be quick enough for them. I mean, it may be too quick for them. So it's definitely a recommendation to be able to jump in and read for them. And provide as much positive feedback, even if they don't know the answer, because that's where it's almost like a hook. You're catching their attention. Hey, this is what we're gonna be learning about. So the second activity introduces Jewish celebrities, specifically in the United States, and a couple in London or England. And we have a couple of pictures, and basically what you're going to be doing is asking as many questions as possible and kind of encouraging them to think about, well, we've seen these people and we may have not even realized that they are Jewish, and providing that kind of introductory step towards recognizing the objective of the lesson altogether. So they're going to be learning altogether about how is that when you're learning abroad, right? So the third activity is basically the most important one. It really dives in deeply into the experiences of some of these kids. They get to watch a video of some anti-Semitism that students have experienced abroad, specifically in England. And it really kind of hits home because it's kids that are actually their age and very close to where how they may have encountered the situation if they were abroad. So there's a set of questions that kind of go with them, and we kind of encourage the kids not to just watch the video, but really have it set up so that you ask them the questions beforehand and then say, this is what we want you to be looking for. Because giving a goal is going to be very vital so that the student doesn't shut down when they're watching this video clip. It's about approximately a few minutes, so you want to make sure that they're really learning something from it. The activity for that follows is actually a Hanukkah song, which is pretty cool because that's going to be around the time that you're going to be presenting this. And we provided them with a song that that is actually one of the most popular songs in the United States, O Hanukkah, and you have a set of words that are missing in there, and you're just trying to fill in the blanks with the students and having them be encouraged to listen to the words, which will build, again, that vocabulary base through the auditory learning. Our fifth activity is also a very short one. So we consistently created multiple little activities so that they're not going to get too tired of listening or being able to switch and transition between many of them. The fifth one is another video clip, and they're watching for countries. Where are these people abroad that and which country do they live in, and how popular is this? And being Jewish all abroad, because oftentimes the kids mostly they know that Israel is a Jewish country, but they don't recognize that, oh, you know, there are actually these smaller countries that may have a very large population and they would have never known otherwise. So the very last activity that we had that you're going to be doing is about what have you learned. So overall, you could actually wrap up the whole lesson and ask anything that they've learned, and they can actually use the PowerPoint slide to add the information on there and really dive into the information that they've really discovered or built upon from where they started and where they ended.